Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? My name is Jerry. Tonight you're going to hear 3 true trucker horror stories. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know if you want more stories like this. Now grab a cup of coffee. Let's get started. This was 3 years ago. I was on a delivery run through central Kansas. If you have never driven through central Kansas at night, I would just tell you it is the flattest, emptiest stretch of road I have ever been on in my life. Fields on both sides as far as you can see. I actually do not mind it. Some guys hate empty roads. I find them peaceful. My wife had called earlier that evening, and we had gotten into a stupid argument about something I cannot even remember now, and I had hung up feeling like an idiot. I was going to call her back when I stopped for fuel. About 2 hours into the drive, the truck started pulling right. I knew what it was before I even checked. Rear tire going soft. I pulled off onto the shoulder and got out. I called roadside, and they told me 90 minutes minimum. I was in the middle of nowhere, so honestly 90 minutes felt very long. I got back in the cab and called my wife. She did not pick up. I left a voicemail that was probably too long and said sorry too many times. Then I just sat there. The fields on either side of the highway were completely flat and went on forever in both directions. There was no wind. The grass was just still. I had the radio on low. I was scrolling through my phone, read some emails, doing normal stuff. After maybe 20 minutes, I got out to stretch my legs. It was a clear night. A lot of stars out there in Kansas that you do not see in the city. I stood next to the truck and looked up at them for a while. Then I looked out at the field on my right. The grass was moving. No, I didn't mean the whole field, the line through it. Starting maybe 100 feet out and moving toward the road. The rest of the grass was completely still. It was like something in it. It was very fast. And it just creeped the hell out of me. I got back in the truck. I think you don't want to know why I got back. I sat in the cab and watched through the passenger window. The line in the grass reached the fence at the road's edge and stopped. I could not see anything at the fence. Whatever had moved through the grass was either very small or very low to the ground, or just not visible in the dark. The grass at the fence was bent where it had stopped. I sat there watching that spot for a while. Nothing moved. I thought about getting out to look. I decided against it pretty quickly. I called roadside again and asked for an update. They said maybe an hour still. I put the phone down. Then I noticed the grass on the other side of the road, the left side. The same thing. A line moving through the grass coming toward the road. I had not seen or heard anything cross the road. I want to explain what the road looked like, because it matters. It was a 2-lane highway. I could see for at least a mile in both directions under my running lights. Nothing had crossed that road, but something was now on the left side that had not been there before. The line in the grass stopped at the left shoulder. Now there was something at the fence on both sides of me. I turned my headlights on full. I could see both spots where the grass was bent, but I could not see what was bending it. I laid on the horn. Nothing moved. I called my wife again. She picked up this time. I did not tell her what was happening. I think I did not want to say it out loud. I just asked her how she was and let her talk, and she could tell something was off, because halfway through she stopped and said, "Are you okay?" I said I was fine. She said, "Gary, you sound weird." I said I had a flat and I was waiting on roadside and I was just tired. She said okay and told me to call her when I got back on the road. I said okay. We hung up. For about 10 minutes nothing happened. I sat there with the headlights on, watching both spots where the grass was bent. Then the grass on the right side started moving again. Not toward me this time. Away from me. Back out into the field. The same line moving fast through the still grass. I watched it go. It went maybe 200 feet into the field and stopped. Then the left side started moving. Away from the road. Out into the field. Same direction. Same speed. Both lines stopped about the same distance out. Then they started moving again. Parallel to the road now. Both of them. moving in the same direction at the same speed. I watched them go until I could not see them anymore. After that, the field was just still. Roadside showed up about 40 minutes later. Guy named Phil. Older, friendly, had done this run before. She changed the tire and I told him what I had seen in the grass. She listened, without saying anything. When I was done, he was quiet for a second. Then he said he had been doing roadside on this stretch of highway for 11 years, and he had gotten 3 other calls from drivers who described something similar. I asked him what he thought it was. He said coyotes, maybe, or some kind of grass fire underground, which apparently happens sometimes in Kansas where the root systems can smolder. He did not sound like he believed either explanation. I did not push it. I paid him and he drove off, and I sat in the cab for a few minutes before pulling back onto the highway. I looked out at both fields one more time. Completely still. Nothing moving anywhere. I called my wife when I got back on the road like I said her. She asked if everything was okay. I said the tire was fixed and I would be home by morning, which was true. But I did not sleep well for about a week after that, and I still do not fully understand why I did not tell her what I saw that night. 3 other drivers on the same stretch of road. The same thing. Phil did not seem surprised when I told him. I grew up in Phoenix. I am not someone who gets spooked by the desert. I want to be clear about that before I tell you what happened on Route 93 2 summers ago. I was running a load from Las Vegas down toward Wickenburg. Long straight highway, mostly empty at that hour, cutting through open desert the whole way. It was around 2 in the morning. My daughter had just started college that week, and I had called her before I left the lot, and she had talked for 45 minutes straight about her roommate and her classes and how the dining hall food was not as bad as she expected. I let her talk the whole time, did not say much, just listened. Because I knew in about a month those calls would get shorter and I wanted the long ones while I had them. So my head was still half on that phone call when I saw it on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a dog, big one, standing on the shoulder maybe 30 feet ahead of me. I eased off the gas a little, because animals do stupid things near roads and a big dog coming through my windshield was not how I wanted this night to go. But as I got closer, I could see it was not a dog. It was too tall. Even on all fours, it was too tall. The proportions were wrong. The legs were too long and bent at angles that did not look right for any animal I had ever seen in the desert. I passed it at about 40 miles an hour. I looked in my mirror immediately. It was standing up, not like an animal stands, like a person stands, on 2 legs, upright, and it was watching my truck. I want to tell you I kept driving. I did not keep driving. I do not fully know why I slowed down. I think part of me thought I had imagined it, and I wanted to prove to myself that I had by looking again and seeing nothing there. That was probably the dumbest thing I have ever done behind the wheel, and I once drove through a hailstorm in Nebraska because I did not want to pull over. I slowed to about 15 miles an hour and looked back in my mirror. It was still standing there, and it was watching me, not moving, just standing in the dark at the side of the road, watching my truck slow down. The shape of it was wrong in a way I cannot describe other than to say every animal has a shape that makes sense when you look at it. This did not make sense. I put my foot back on the gas. About 2 miles down the road there was a wide gravel shoulder where trucks sometimes pull off. I stopped there. I do not know what I was thinking. Maybe I was not thinking. I sat there with the engine running and looked back down the dark highway, nothing behind me. Empty road. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes. Then I called my wife. She was asleep and answered with that voice where she's trying to sound awake but is clearly not awake. I told her I was sorry to call this late. She asked if I was okay. I told her I thought I saw something on the road. She said what kind of something. I said I did not know. She was quiet for a second, and then she said in a voice that was more awake now, she said, what did it look like? I described it, the way it was on all fours, the wrong proportions, the way it stood up after I passed. She did not say anything for a moment. Then she said, Gary, that's a skinwalker. Now my wife is Navajo. She grew up in New Mexico, and she does not talk about skinwalkers casually. She does not tell skinwalker stories at parties. She does not think they are interesting folklore. The way she was raised, you do not say the word lightly, and you do not go looking for them, and most importantly, you do not stop your truck on a dark desert highway after you see one and sit there with your lights on, which is exactly what I had done. She told me to get back on the road right now. I told her I was about to. She said, Gary, I am not joking, get back on the road. I put the truck in drive. I had been driving maybe 4 minutes when something hit the side of the trailer. Hard. Not like debris off the road. Like something large and deliberate. I felt it in the cab. I checked my mirrors and I could not see anything. The road behind me was empty. Then it happened again. Same side. Same spot on the trailer. I was doing 65 miles an hour. Whatever hit the trailer, hit it twice at 60. 5 miles an hour, and I could not see anything in my mirrors. I called my wife back. She picked up on the first ring, which told me she had not gone back to sleep. I told her something hit the trailer. She did not ask what. She just said keep driving, and do not stop, and do not look for it, and do not think about it. I said okay. She stayed on the phone with me, did not talk, just stayed on the line. For the next 20 minutes she stayed on the line and I drove. And neither of us said anything, and I have never been more grateful for the sound of another person breathing than I was for those 20 minutes. I made it to Wickenburg without anything else happening. I pulled into a lit truck stop just off the highway and sat there for a while before I could make myself get out and check the trailer. There was a dent in the side panel, big one, about chest height, like something had hit it from outside while we were moving at highway speed. I took a picture of it. I still have it. I filed a report with my company saying I must have been sideswiped by something. I did not say what I actually thought it was because I did not want to have that conversation. My wife called me when I was at the delivery. She asked if I was okay. I said I was. She said, next time you see something like that on the road, do not slow down. I said I know. She said I mean it, Gary. I said I know. I have driven Road 93 a handful of times since then, always at night because of my schedule. I do not slow down for anything on that road anymore. I do not care what it is. Dog, coyote, whatever. I keep my speed up, and I keep my eyes on the road ahead of me, and I do not look in the mirror until I am well past it. My wife asked me once if I believed what I saw that night was actually a skinwalker. I told her I did not know what I believed. She nodded and said, that's probably the right answer. The dent is still on the trailer. My company never fixed it. Every time I do a pre-trip inspection and I walk around that trailer, I see it, chest height, made by something that hit us while we were doing 65 miles an hour in the middle of the Arizona desert at 2 in the morning. I just mark it on the inspection sheet as prior damage and keep moving. What else are you going to do? This was about 18 months ago. I had a load going to a small manufacturing facility outside of a town called Berwick. Middle of the week. Wednesday night into Thursday morning. I had never been to Berwick. Did not know anything about it. Just a dot on a map with a delivery address. I got there around 1 in the morning. The facility was closed until 6 a.m., so I had 5 hours to kill. I found the address, backed into the dock, set my brake, and started looking for somewhere to get food and fuel nearby. There was one gas station about a mile and a half away. According to my GPS, there was nothing else open. I drove over. It was a small place. Old building, 2 pumps, a light above the door that was flickering like it had been flickering for years, and nobody had gotten around to fixing it. I pulled in and started fueling. That is when I noticed them. There were people standing outside, not at the gas station, on the street. 3 houses down from where I was parked, a man was standing in his front yard, just standing there, facing down the road. Across the street, a woman was standing on her porch. Same thing, not sitting, standing, facing the same direction. I looked further down the street. There were more of them. Every house I could see had at least one person outside, standing in their yard or on their porch or at the end of their driveway, all of them facing the same direction. Down the road that came into town from the north, nobody was talking, nobody was moving. They were just standing there in the dark at 1 a.m, all looking at the same stretch of empty road. I finished fueling and went inside to pay. The woman behind the counter was older, maybe 65, reading glasses on. She was doing a crossword puzzle and did not look up right away. I paid for my fuel. Then I asked her what was going on outside. She looked up at me over her glasses. She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "All the people standing outside." She put her pen down. She looked at me for a second the way someone looks at you when they are trying to figure out how much to tell you. Then she said, "They do that every Thursday night." I asked her why. She said, "You don't want to know what comes through here on Thursday nights." I stood there at that counter, and I waited for her to say something else. Maybe laugh, maybe tell me she was joking. She picked her pen back up and went back to her crossword. I walked back outside. I want to tell you what it looked like, because I think about it a lot. There were maybe 15 or 20 people that I could see from the parking lot, men and women, old and young. One of them was a kid, maybe 10 years old, standing next to who I assumed was his father at the end of their driveway. All of them completely still, all of them facing north. I got in my truck. I sat there for a second. Then I noticed something. They were all facing north. My truck was facing north. Every single one of them was now looking directly at my truck. I do not know when that happened. I do not know if they had turned while I was inside paying or if they had been facing my truck the whole time and I had not noticed. But they were all looking at me. Not at the road anymore. At me. I started the truck. I was going to go back to the dock and wait there until 6 a.m. That was my plan. But before I pulled out, I looked north up the road. There was something coming. Far off. Maybe half a mile. It was hard to see. Just a shape moving down the road toward town. Too big to be a person. Moving too steadily to be a vehicle. No lights. No sound that I could hear. Just something large and dark. Moving down the road toward Berwick at 1 a.m, while 20 people stood outside their homes watching it come. I pulled out of that gas station. I went south. I did not go back to the dock. I drove until I found a truck stop 40 minutes outside of town, and I parked there, and I sat in my cab, and I called Deanne. She did not pick up. I sat there for a long time. At 5:30 in the morning, I drove back to Berwick to make my delivery. The streets were empty. Everyone was gone. The houses all had their lights off. The gas station was closed. I made my delivery, got my paperwork signed, and I left. I asked the guy at the dock who signed my paperwork if anything strange happened in that town at night. He looked at me. He asked if I came through on a Thursday. I said I came through Wednesday night into Thursday morning. He nodded slowly. He said, "Yeah, don't do that." I asked him what comes through on Thursday nights. He said he had lived there his whole life, and he did not know. He said nobody who had stayed to find out had ever been able to explain it after. He said the people in town had just learned a long time ago to go outside and watch, so they knew it was there. I asked him what happens if it doesn't know you know. She just looked at me. Then he said, "Have a safe drive." And he went back inside. I have thought about that shape on the road a lot over the last 18 months. I have thought about the kid standing next to his father at the end of the driveway. 10 years old, standing outside at 1 in the morning in the dark, watching something come down the road. Because that is just what you do if you live in that town. That is just Thursday night. I have not been back to Berwick. If another load comes up going there, I find a reason to pass it to someone else. I have not told many people this story, because the part that bothers me most is not the shape on the road. It is what the dock worker said. Nobody who stayed to find out had ever been able to explain it after. She said it so casually, like it was just a fact about the town, like telling me the speed limit or where to park the truck, just a fact.